Welcome to the future. Get ready to explore how spirituality and science will come together in the Age of Aquarius. Hosted by JC Nova. Welcome to the Age of Aquarius podcast, where we explore the mysteries of the universe and take a cosmic ride into the future. Today we have a special guest, Jason Debord, a dream expert, author, and host of the popular podcast, Dreams That Shape Us. With years of experience studying the art of dream interpretation, Jason has written several books, including the Dream Interpretation Dictionary and Dreams 123, to name a few. Join us as we dive into the fascinating world of lucid dreaming, prophetic dreams, and more, and discover the secrets of the unconscious mind. Whether you're a lucid dreamer or just starting to explore the world of dream work, Jason has plenty of insights and advice to share. So sit back, relax, and get ready to journey into the realms of dreams with us. This is the Age of Aquarius podcast, and we're about to take you on a wild ride through the world of dreaming. Enjoy the show. What inspired you to become an expert in dream interpretation?
That's a good place to start. Well, you know the old saying, if you lead a horse to water, will he drink? And I was the horse. I was a junior or so in college. I was in my early 20s, and I felt like there was something missing from my life. And I'd gone to see a counselor on campus, basically like a psychology grad student. And the answer they came up with after I poured my heart out about all the crazy stuff that happened to me as a teenager and, you know, how I kind of got my life together and went to college and now I was kind of losing steam. And she said, well, it sounds like you just need to kind of organize your time better and manage your life a little better and you'll be fine. And I'm like, no, I've got all these other deep emotional and spiritual things that are going on. These kinds of answers aren't going to work for me. So after a series of synchronicities where, you know, it's a meaningful coincidence as defined by Carl Jung, he has this idea that there are synchronicities that happen where our inner life and our outer life kind of align in meaningful ways, and we are led to where we need to be. The horse is led to the water. I was led to a man named Larry Pesavento, who was a therapist in Cincinnati, Ohio, where I was going to college at the time. And Larry listened to my story and he said, you know, I could give you answers like this other person that you talked with, and it might help you in the short run, but in the long run, what you need to find are your own answers. And you can find that through your dreams. And I will teach you how to do it. You write down your dreams, bring them to me for our sessions, and I'll help you work through them. And there is the living water. The magic happened because I started quickly being able to connect the content of my dreams with what was going on in my life. Now, I will admit that I really had no idea when we first went through those early sessions working with my dreams. I just knew that he was finding these insights in my dreams and he could kind of reflect them back to me in a way that I went, wow, like this really resonates. This makes sense. So it was like, you know, when you find something that really ignites you, that it wells up from deep inside you and it leads you to something that you've been looking for and you haven't found another way to it, to the deeply meaningful, spiritual, heart-based side of yourself. By learning dream interpretation, it got me into myself in a deeper sort of way. I was living on the surface of myself, and suddenly the door opened and I could see inside of myself. I could see into areas of myself that had been dark in the sense of unknown to me. And it turns out this is what dreams really do. We can get into it more in our conversation, but dreams lead you into the dark areas of your own mind and shine a light into them. So it was fascinating to me and I was off to the races. I started studying all the luminaries of dream psychology and then learning how to apply it to myself in my life really opened up the door for me to become what I am considered today, which is an expert in dream interpretation. So thanks for asking.
So how does a person look at a common dream and decipher which one is just a regular dream versus one that holds special significance that they should pay attention to?
Well, they will sense it when they wake up. The importance of the dream reaches out to you and you feel it. You know subconsciously while you're dreaming what is really going on behind the scenes because you are creating your dreams. I call this simple fact number one about dreams. And when I teach audiences that are new to dream interpretation, I start them off with this simple fact. You created your dreams, so you must know subconsciously what they mean. So when you have a dream that stands out to you, you're more engaged with it. You feel more emotional affect from it. Those are the ones that are more important. We can dream for up to half the night. So if you sleep for 8 hours, that's 4 hours of dreaming. Take that 4 hours and divide it in roughly half. Half of it will be in what's called non-REM dreaming. These are more thought-like experiences. These are more surface experiences of dreaming. There's a lot going on behind the scenes, but what you are seeing and experiencing as you're dreaming is really more, it's not really experiential. It's not really grabbing hold of your emotions. Now take the other half of that 4 hours, and that's when you are in the REM stage of dreaming, when you have the most vivid and intense dreaming. You experience the dream as a participant. The dream creates a scenario, a story, and you walk into it as a participant, as an actor in the story. You engage with it, and it affects you personally. It affects you emotionally. Those are the dreams that will stand out to you. Now, you can have 2 hours of that type of dreaming in a night, and you might remember 5 or 10 minutes of it. What you remember will most likely be the stuff that is the most important for you to remember. There is something behind the scenes that is helping you to create your dreams. It's known as the unconscious mind. It is the original mind of the human species. It's the mind of nature that has been handed down to us through thousands of generations of evolution. That part of your mind is behind the scenes and observing you and everything about your life. And nightly, when you go to sleep, it decides what the highest priorities are. It says, what do we need to work on? And then it goes to work, and it creates like a simulated classroom environment for you to learn in. And when I say simulated classroom, I don't mean like school classroom, but in the sense of it is a space for you to learn in through simulations. For any of the nerdy Star Trek fans out there, it's like the holodeck. The holodeck, they would create these simulated scenarios to walk into and help them to learn things. That's exactly what your dreams are doing for you. The dreams that are the most important will stand out to you. And there is one other thing. That part of your mind, the unconscious, it's crafting your dreams. It knows that the ones that you are the most likely to remember are the ones that you're going to have just before you wake up for the final time. Like you can wake up throughout the night, but the final time, after you've had enough sleep and you wake up, just before you wake up, those dreams, it will load those with the most important content and information because it knows those are the dreams that you're most likely to remember.
What are some of the most common symbols or themes that appear in dreams?
I'm known as Radow at Reddit, and it's at a forum, a subreddit known as r/dreams. And so I've been a moderator there since, 2013. So I've seen a lot of dreams in that time. And the most common ones, I would say, involve themes such as driving a car, and then you tell a story about what's going on in the person's life around the theme of driving a car. Like you're driving the car and you can't slow it down. And what that usually means is that in some way you are out of control. You're going too fast. I get this a lot from media people when I'm doing interviews, and we'll talk about their dreams. And you wouldn't believe how many of these people have the same dream. I'm driving along. I can't stop myself from pressing down on the gas pedal, and I'm going faster and faster. Maybe then try to use the brakes and that they don't work and the car just keeps going along, barreling down the road. It's a metaphor for their life. They're very involved in their careers and their lives are very busy. And the dream creates a metaphor of a car that's going faster and faster. That's a way of saying that their life is going too fast. And then when you try to press on the brakes and the brakes don't work, the car, that means that they can't slow themselves down. You can start there. and go off into so many describe different situations in life. If the car is going in circles, it can mean you are going in circles. If the car is going backwards, it can mean that you've taken a step back or you've had a setback. In some way, things are going in reverse, meaning it's going the wrong direction. Instead of making progress, you're regressing. So driving in a car, flying in a plane, exploring a house or living inside of a house is a very common theme. Sex is also pretty common. And I will say about that subject, rarely is sex actually what you see is what you get. That rarely happens in dreams. So sex dreams are usually more about what you're integrating personally into yourself, what you're intimate with, what you are emotionally and heart-based connected with. There's all kinds of different themes that it can then take off. The dreaming mind can tell all kinds of different stories, just starting with that one basic theme. A lot of dreams involve social interaction, especially with younger people who are in the first half of their lives, and their lives revolve around their social groups. They'll have a lot of dreams about being on adventures with their friends. Our most important relationships tend to creep into our dreams a lot. So that'll be dreams that feature your significant other, your mate, your spouse, and also if members of your family. If you're close with your family, you'll have a lot of dreams about them. So we could go on, but I would say that's probably, what did I list there? Probably 7 or 8 different themes. Those are probably the top ones.
So let's talk about nightmares. Why do we have nightmares, and can nightmares be positive?
Well, I just published a book, Nightmares, Your Guide to Interpreting Your Darkest Dreams. I talk a lot about what differentiates why we have nightmares and what differentiates a nightmare from an ordinary dream. Why we have nightmares? Usually it's because you're not getting the message from gentler means of getting across a message. So your dreaming mind realizes that you aren't really listening. You're not really getting the message. So it cranks up the volume. That's one way of thinking of a nightmare. It's a dream, but it's much more vivid and intense. It affects you in ways that, get really deep down into the core of you. It shakes you up. It's like shock therapy in that way. Nightmares are the shock therapy of the dream world, if you want to use sort of a simple way of summarizing it. The nightmare is trying to help you to realize that there is something that is dysfunctional in your life, in yourself. It's trying to help you to confront your fears. It wants you to understand that there is something that needs to be fixed. It needs to be healed. Sometimes, and actually Carl Jung said that the most common cause of nightmares is in the ego part of the mind has an antagonistic relationship with the larger structure of the mind, which is the unconscious. So it's antagonism between the ego and the unconscious. The unconscious isn't causing the antagonism. What it's doing is telling the ego things that it doesn't want to know. The ego has territory that it's defending, turf. It has self-conceptions. And the unconscious is coming in and saying, there's a larger picture that you need to see, that it would help you to see, that it would either help you to address the dysfunction in your life, help you get past some kind of roadblock, or help you to develop your potential, because you've now limited yourself through these self-conceptions into this little box, and it wants you to see the bigger picture. So it will hit you with these really intense, vivid dreams, what we call nightmares, that emotionally affect you so that you'll get the message, and it will shock you out of your complacency. It'll make you take a hard look at yourself in the mirror, a hard look at your life, and say, where can I improve? Where can I heal? Where can I get past my roadblocks? So that's it in a nutshell.
What about night terrors?
Night terrors are a special kind of experience because you have nightmares, which are, just call them a dream on steroids. It's like a high intensity dream. But a night terror is a different type of experience. It's more of an energetic experience. The energy is coming from trauma that has been trapped in the nervous system. A person has experienced some kind of traumatic event. usually some kind of chronic trauma, such as living in an abusive household, living on the edges of society and having to sort of scrape for your existence. Imagine living under the bridge, kind of thing. And you're constantly under danger, fear of deprivation, of starvation, things like this. And then there's things like combat, going to war. And I mentioned abusive households, living in an abusive household with someone who is a alcoholic or an addict, someone who's violent, someone who's mentally ill, someone who is emotionally unstable. And this is like a parent or someone who can affect you in your life very deeply. Living in that kind of environment creates this chronic sense of fear. You're unsafe, you're anxious, so all those emotions are all wrapped up in this. You're experiencing it in your nervous system, but you're unable to shake it off. And so the energy gets imprinted into your nervous system. It's a natural response to traumatic situations. To be able to get through them is to sort of turn off the deeper parts of yourself and just get through it. And then later, once the danger is past, then you shake it off. Like literally, you tremble and shake it out of your body, out of your nervous system. But if you don't have the opportunity to do that, and if you are continually under the stress and the fear and anxiety that caused the trauma in the first place, it will imprint into you and store in your nervous system. Then months, years, or even decades later, you're dreaming and your body is relaxing enough that it can release the energy back into your system. And all of the power and affect of it come and hit you. It's an experience of this energy releasing into your nervous system as you're dreaming. And then it turns into a night terror. The content of the night terror is different from a nightmare in that rarely can you really make any sense of it through techniques of dream interpretation and analysis. Let me give you an example. I learned this from a friend of mine who was having chronic nightmares, what we called nightmares at the time. I tried everything I knew to get into the content of those nightmares and try to trace them to their source and do try to help him. And it wasn't helping. And he shared with me that when he was a teenager, his stepfather was an abusive, violent alcoholic. And at one time, the man pointed a shotgun at him with the intent of killing him. Now, if you've ever lived through an experience where you think you're going to die, that release of energy, the survival instinct that kicks in is like nothing else you've ever experienced. And he didn't die, obviously, but he had to go to sleep in the same house with the man who had been pointing a gun at him and said, "Prepare to die." So now he's living under this chronic situation with, the fear that he could die at any moment, that his violently abusive alcoholic stepfather could walk into his bedroom and just fucking blow him away. Excuse my French, but it was a powerful experience. Years later, decades later, he was dreaming about this as night terrors. The night terrors would be like his little nephew is drowning in a lake of fire and screaming out for his help, and he can't get to him. He can't rescue him. He would see scenes of blood and gore and horror and like dark entities and demons and all this stuff, except there wasn't any sense to it. There wasn't a narrative that you could pull out of it and do the traditional techniques of dream interpretation on it. And what I figured out is that it was an energetic experience of releasing the trauma. So post-traumatic stress, it's releasing that energy into his system as he's asleep. And the solution to it was, for him, he took up Krav Maga, which is a martial art. It's very combat based. And he could physically work through the issues, the energy, he could work it out of his system. Therapy and dream interpretation wasn't going to do him any good. He needed to work it out physically. And so that's why a night terror is different than a nightmare.
That's fascinating. Can you tell me more about your podcast, Dreams That Shape Us?
Yes. Now we go to the light side. We just explored some of the dark material there. The Dreams That Shape Us, I've been doing this for the last 2 years with my co-host, Steve Ernenwine. And it is an exploration of dreams that have a deep impact on the people who have them. And we interview those people to talk with them about the ways that their dreams shape them. So it's right there in the title. We have dreams that have helped people make important decisions. Do I leave the job that I was in or do I stay there? Do I move across country and attend the graduate school? Do I get up off the couch because I'm finally healed, but I haven't been sure that I was okay to be able to do that? Season 1, episode 1, we had a guy who dreamed that he was a character from the show called The K Project. And it turned out that what he was seeing in his dreams over and over again, he had these dreams about being this character that was the embodiment of what he used to be before the doctors told him he had a heart condition and he couldn't be the active young man that he'd been up to that point in his life. And so he, out of fear, basically restricted himself to living in his, staying indoors and watching a lot of TV and browsing the internet and stuff like that, because he was told that he couldn't get his heart rate up too high. He couldn't put stress on his heart. So the skateboarding and the parkour and lifting weights and all that stuff was out of his life. By dreaming about being that character, he realized that his deeper part of himself, the unconscious mind, was telling him, hey, it's time to live again. And he had some really amazing synchronicities that reinforced that message for him. So it's those kinds of things. We've had people who they recovered memories of sexual abuse and trauma. We've had people who had dreams that helped them to understand and deepen their relationships with their loved ones that helped them to shift careers, to take up hobbies and artistic endeavors. We show how dreams are deeply meaningful and that it's well worth your time to track your dreams and to spend the time to try to understand them.
On the podcast, do you talk about lucid dreams? Can you talk a little bit more about what is a lucid dream and how it's different than a regular dream?
We do. My co-host, Stephen, had life-changing experiences in his lucid dreams. And so he's very much the expert at it. We have explored the subject in several of the episodes. The difference is, while a lucid dream is when your rational mind is active while you're dreaming, and it usually means that you become aware that you're dreaming. See, in an ordinary dream, you are usually unaware that you're dreaming, and the rational part of your mind in the prefrontal cortex is actually shut off. So you go into the dream space with a different version of yourself. In fact, in the study of dreams, we call it the dream ego. The regular ego has that rational component of the mind along with it. But when you go into the dream without it, in a non-lucid dream, you're bringing your self-identity into the dream, but you're not bringing your ordinary rational mind with you. That's why you can see things like, say an animal that's a fusion of different kinds of animals. It's one part lion, it's one part goats, it's one part ram, and you can look at it and go, well, that makes perfect sense, because the rational part of your mind is not switched on. When you become lucid, that rational part is switched on. And now you can actively participate in the dream, consciously and rationally participate in the dream. You can allow the dream to proceed as it normally would, but with your being more conscious of yourself and what's going on. Or you can decide that you want to have an experience when you're dreaming. I like to fly when I become lucid. It's usually the first thing I do when I realize I'm dreaming, and I go, cool, let's fly, because it's a wonderful experience. It's a full body nervous, even though it's a dream body, it's not your physical body. It feels as if you are in the air flying like a bird or flying like, Superman or whatever. And then there's other things that people like to do. They could have their favorite, have a fantasy that they want to experience. They could decide that they want to know what it's like to see the Earth from orbit. And then you basically just request it. I want to be in outer space. And if you can believe that it's possible, then the dream will respond by creating it for you. When I used that analogy earlier, like the holodeck from Star Trek, and that's what dreaming is like, a lucid dream allows you to program the holodeck yourself to set the parameters for it. You can also use lucid dreaming for other things, very deeply personal and spiritual things. You can say, for example, show me what I most need to know right now. And it will visualize it for you, or it will create a scenario or an experience for you. You could say, I want to meet my spirit guides. And next thing you know, the holographic environment shifts to create a scene where you can meet with your spirit guides. Anything you want. I've had people in lucid dreams who said, I want to meet God. And then they're pulled out into this place deep in the universe somewhere, and they have a sense of the awe-inspiring presence of a supreme creative being. Or it might be something where it's not even a being. Like it might show you something that is completely outside of what your understanding is at that time. Like it could take you and show you God, and it's a big tree. It's a star. It's something that inspires awe in you. So yeah, the lucid dreaming is fascinating. We do explore it a lot on the podcast. And we've explored the various ways that it can be used for healing and for growth. In fact, I would recommend season 3, episode 1. We had Professor Scott Sparrow on the show, who wrote the first book in the Western world. It was during the 1970s. He wrote a book about lucid dreaming. It was called Lucid Dreaming, Dawning of the Clear Light. And it was before Robert Wagner's seminal book on lucid dreaming came out. And he talks about his experiences that led him to become lucid and to experience things in those lucid dreams that were mystical and extremely powerful and life-shaping for him. Fascinating interview. So season 3, episode 1 with Scott Sparrow. Check it out. And if you want to learn more about lucid dreaming.
That's great. I'm definitely going to check out that episode. Let's talk a little bit about dreams and synchronicity and how they intersect. Like, what is the relationship between the two?
Wow. We've done some episodes on that too. Let's define for the listeners what synchronicity is. It's a concept that Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist, came up with in collaboration with Wolfgang Pauli, who was a physicist who won a Nobel Prize. They worked for 20 years to try to scientifically explain a phenomenon that both of them had observed and experienced, which is when something aligns meaningful between your inner world and your outer world. Now, I'll give you an example from Carl Jung's life. He was very much a scholarly man. He had a tremendous amount of output in many, many books that he put out on many obscure subjects. He delved into some territory of like alchemy and esotericism and mysticism because he was trying to understand consciousness. He had one day that he was at an impasse with something. It was a rare field of knowledge that he needed to know more about. And he didn't have the resources for it. Now, this is like, let's say it's 1930. You couldn't just go on the internet. To be able to find some of these obscure sources of information could take you months or years of searching. He had a feeling. He told his secretary, he said, keep an eye out for a book in the mail today. And she's like, what book? He's like, I don't know. It's just going to come and it's going to be the book that I need. A month before then, a man had mailed a book that he'd written to Carl and asked him to review it. It got through the mail. It took a month to get to him in Switzerland. It arrived that day, and it was exactly what he needed. So a month before he realized that he needed it, someone on the other side of the world decided to send Carl a copy of his book and ask him to review it. Like, this is mind-boggling coincidence, right? But it's not coincidence. It's a meaningful coincidence. And that is the easiest way of defining what a synchronicity is. According to Jung and Pauli, there is a connection between a person's inner world, the world of mind and spirit, and a person's outer world, which is what we know as the material world. What they said is that they are a continuum. And by a continuum, you think of it as like a spectrum. You have mind on one end, you have matter, the world of matter, physical matter on the other end. They are a continuum. If you start off in the mind and you go deep, 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 deep down into yourself, Jung did it through meditative techniques. He found that at the very bottom of his mind, he went into the world of physical matter, and his mind could influence and shape that world. It's a continuum. Mind and matter are the same. Now, mystics and different philosophies and stuff have been telling us this for thousands of years, that the objective world of physical matter is actually a reflection, maybe even created by the inner world of mind. And this is where Wolfgang Pauli came in, because he was a quantum physicist. And we're learning that the quantum, the world of subatomic particles, out of which all of our material reality arises, is responsive to our consciousness. So getting back to synchronicity, there is a way that a deep part of the mind can influence the world of matter and give us synchronicities that are meaningful, that are personal. The guy I told you about who had the dream about the K project, and it told him that he could get his life back again and he could be active. This series of dreams hit him for like a month, and there were amazing synchronicities that happened. But the final one was the icing on the cake. He was sitting there with his journal. He'd been journaling all these dreams and then using it like a diary to write about this experience, amazing experience that he was having. He was listening to a song playlist. He said he had hundreds of songs on like MP3s on his computer, and he had it on shuffle. So it was just playing random songs out of his song catalog. A song came on as he was writing, and he was thinking to himself, I've got to get back to the life that I had before, like before he became sick. He was thinking, maybe these dreams are telling me that I can have my life back again. And right at that moment, there was a song that came on. And the chorus of the song was, I've got to get back to the life I had before. The exact thing that he was thinking at that moment. Now, I think most people have experienced something like that, where something that they are thinking or feeling gets reflected back to them from their physical environment, and it seems to be meaningful in a way that resonates. Something they hear on the television or on the radio, something that a person says in conversation, something they see on a t-shirt while they're standing in line at the grocery store. It has a message for them. Those are synchronicities. But then there's also ones like a guy named Bernie Beitman. He's a psychiatrist who specializes in synchronicity. He said the first synchronicity that he experienced was when he found his lost dog, because he took a way home after looking for the dog and being unable to find it. He was walking back home and he took a different route back home. He says he doesn't know why he decided it. It was a longer route, but he just decided that he would do it. And that's when he found his dog. There have been people who had synchronicities where they decided to take a different path, like, well, I'm not going to shop at my usual grocery store. I'm going to shop somewhere else. And that day, they meet someone in the grocery store who becomes their lifelong companion. They get married or whatever. Like weird things that you can't explain. You could try to say that it's just a remarkable coincidence, but something resonates inside of you that says, oh, this is more than coincidence. This is meaningful. This is synchronicity. So that's what a synchronicity is.
What about dreams that predict the future or premonitions? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Would love to. This was a subject that I had to learn a lot about, because when I came forward in 2013 as an author of books about dreams, and I started doing interviews like what we're doing now, guess what I got asked about? Instead of being asked about, techniques of dream interpretation and analysis and theories of dream psychology, I got a lot of questions about premonition dreams, about dreams that seem to predict the future. I had to go on a quest to find out as much as I could about it because that's what people wanted to know about, And so I was happy to do it. And what I found out is that there is a scientific term for this. It's called precognition. And precognition is the ability of the mind to be able to see what is about to happen. There is presentiment, which is a feeling of what's about to happen. Precognition is more of a thought about what's about to happen. It could be what's going to happen 5 seconds from now that's unpredictable. It could be what's going to happen tomorrow. It could be what's going to happen next month or next year. Most people experience precognition, at least initially, through their dreams that they know of. And it's a natural ability of the mind to be able to preview the future. What's going to happen in the future? It's a preview. And in a way, it's a prediction because the future is never set in stone. But there are some very, very famous cases of people who had these dreams that seemed to show exactly what was going to happen in the future. Abraham Lincoln, 2 weeks before he was assassinated, had a dream that he came down into the rotunda of the White House and he saw that the president was in a coffin. And he knew that was him. And they said, what happened? And they said, the president has been assassinated. So seemingly, he had a dream that predicted his own assassination. But you could also make the argument that he knew that there were a lot of people that hated him passionately and that assassination was very much like a possibility. But then there was also, if you want to get into a different one that was a little more interesting, there was Sugar Ray Robinson, the famous boxer, who had a dream that he knocked out and killed his opponent, Jimmy Doyle, in the ring. Now, they had a match, set up, and the dream happened like maybe a week before. And he tried to back out of the fight. He really had a feeling that that dream was going to come true. And the fight promoter brought in a priest to convince him that it was just a dream. He went in and fought Jimmy Doyle that night in the ring, knocked him out. Jimmy Doyle died. And in his biography, he said, why didn't I listen? I knew that that dream was telling me that I shouldn't be fighting Doyle. He said that it was God trying to tell him not to be in the ring that night. Now, I've explored that really deeply, and I found that Jimmy Doyle was known to have head issues because he'd been hit so many times so hard as a boxer. He was this tenacious Irish boxer. He was a champion level boxer, or at least contender. And he'd taken a lot of shots, and Sugar Ray Robinson knew it, and a lot of other people knew it too. And a lot of people thought that the man shouldn't be fighting anymore. So was it actually predicting the future? In that sense, yes. But was it a prophecy? Now, a prophecy is something that's set in stone. It's a major event that's going to happen regardless. It's something that can't be prevented. I have seen a number of dreams. There are historical cases and ones that I've read across at Reddit and ones that I've had myself, where the dream shows that something is going to happen and there's no way of stopping it. There was one guy at Reddit who had he knew exactly where this earthquake was going to happen. He saw all the devastation. He experienced it as if he was an observer that was there in the scene. And when I questioned him about it, the first thing that stood out to me is he didn't even live in that country. And I'm like, well, why would you be dreaming about an event that's going to happen on another part of the world? It turned out that his family was from that part of the world, and that the town that was the epicenter of the earthquake was very close to the hometown where he was born and had moved away long ago, but his family still had roots there. So he was actually dreaming about that event ahead of time. And I've seen this happen quite a number of times with other people. But here's the thing, most people, their dreams, their precognitive dreams, they don't seem to be predicting major events. They show you like snippets of conversation that you're going to have. It happened to me the other day. My brother was down visiting, helping to move our dad into a new apartment. And I was driving down the road. My brother's in the seat next to me. And I suddenly got that deja vu feeling. Like, holy crap, this is so familiar. Why is it familiar? And I realized that I dreamed about it. Just being in the car, driving down the road, having a conversation with my brother, looking out the window and seeing the scenery, the traffic, the mountains in the background. Like it was all suddenly very familiar. And it was because I dreamed about it. And there is a theory that deja vu is actually a moment in time that you remember that you've dreamed about the moment that you are living in right now, that you dreamed about it ahead of time, and it jogs your memory because the dream had been forgotten. That was sort of what happened to me. I didn't remember that dream until the moment when I was living it with my eyes open and my brother next to me in the car. And I went, wow, yeah, I dreamed about this last night. So that's what a precognitive dream is.
What about people that have dreams of a loved one coming to visit them before they die or just as they die?
Very common. On my podcast, the Rochelle episode, which is season 1, episode 6, she describes a family friend who came to her as a being of light, and she knew that he had just died, and it turned out that he had just died, but she didn't know like that was, no one knew. He just like died in his sleep. So it wasn't like you could predict that it was going to happen. This happens many, many times, has happened. And there is a connection between us that the dreaming mind has an ability to facilitate. Now, here's the thing. People have also been awake and realized that like they suddenly have a feeling something is going on with my loved one or someone that I know. There's something has just happened to them or is about to happen. You know, whether it's they get in an accident, they experience some kind of traumatic event, or they die. They just know that it's going to happen or that it is happening. It can happen through dreams, but it can also happen when you're awake. I think that it's easier for you to receive these signals while you're asleep because the normal rational part of the mind is shut down and you're able to tap into the intuitive part of the mind. The intuitive part of the mind just knows things without having to know that there's a cause and effect. You know, how could you possibly know that someone that is not in your environment right now and who's not like sitting in the hospital, you know, on death watch is dying right now? How could you possibly know that? Well, we could get into the theories, but I prefer just to say that we are all connected together by our hearts and by our spirits, and that we know things about each other, especially when people are, you know, when things are important. How many times have we heard about a parent who knows that their kid is in some kind of trouble? The one lady whose kid had just fallen into the pool and she was inside and she didn't know it. She didn't hear it. She just went, oh my God, my child. She runs out the door and her toddler had gotten through the gate and walked into the pool and fell into it. And she just knew out of nowhere. My mom once showed up when I was a teenager and she had moved out of state after my parents got divorced and I stayed with my father. My dad and I came to blows and I left the house. And a month or so later, I was on my way to Florida. I was running away. I had some friends. We were going to load into a car and we were just going to drive to Florida. And my mom had a feeling that morning that something was wrong. I was in Ohio. She was in Tennessee. She got into the car and drove to Ohio and appeared in the driveway because she had a feeling something was wrong. She couldn't reach me on the phone. You know, this was the 1980s. So, you know, we didn't even have voicemail back then, you know, and answering machines were rare. So, but she knew something was wrong and she showed up. That kind of feeling that she had could be something that would appear in a dream, but she had it while she was awake. But it's the same thing. It's your intuition telling you something. It's a knowing of something without knowing how you know it. You just know that it's true. So that's how that operates, I think, how we can know things in our dreams without having any basis for it. There's no logical reason why you would think that this thing is about to happen. You just know it deep down in your bones. So I think that's how the precognition, I think that's how that works.
So we just have a couple of questions left. The Dream School, maybe talk about it and then how listeners can get in touch with you.
Yeah, thanks for asking about Dream School. This is my baby. I created online courses for dream interpretation and analysis, and I put them up at dreamschool.net. I also call it Rad Owl's Dream School or Rad Owl's School of Dream Interpretation and Analysis because that's what we do. I teach the psychology of dreaming, the theories behind it, and then how to apply those things to your dream content. I don't want this just to be an intellectual exercise. I want it to be a learning experience where you can take something away from it as my student, where you can take a lot of things away from it. So there are courses in dream symbols and how to decode symbolism. And symbolism is how your dreaming mind speaks to you. So you need to know how to translate it. It's an essential skill of dream interpretation. I have an intro course, which just runs through my system of dream interpretation. I created a process that's dreams 1, 2, 3. It's a process of dream interpretation. You can learn about it at dreams123.com, by the way. Right there it is, spelled out for you. Then I also have courses on what's called dream resolution. It's what is a dream telling you that you can walk away with and apply it to your life for your enrichment and your growth and your healing. I use a lot of examples of people that I've worked with and their dreams and what they took away from them that could be used for their benefit. And then one of my favorites, probably the favorite, is Dreaming for Love and Relationships. It's a course that I offer that helps people to understand that part of dreaming. They may have never had any interest in their dreams before, but I tell you, you have a dream where they find the love of their life and now they're very interested in dream interpretation because they have something very personally important to them that draws them into that part of their life. They want to know, am I really going to find the love of my life? And usually what the dream is pointing you towards is to learning how to love yourself first. But, I won't want to give away too much because I want you to take the course. So yes, that's at dreamschool.net. So thanks for asking about that. I would love for more people to be able to access those courses and get the learning material and the benefit from them.
What advice would you give to someone that's new to dream interpretation?
Well, I would say go to dreams123.com and read my 3 simple facts and 3 simple steps. There's 3 simple facts about dreams. One is subconsciously you know what your dreams mean. And that is because you create your dreams, but you create them subconsciously. So dream interpretation is a process of remembering what you already know. Simple fact number 2 is that dreams are stories. They are a special type of story, though. They are a choose your own adventure because dreams are responsive to your choices. They are not predetermined, which was what Sigmund Freud taught. And some of the people in psychoanalysis in the early days, they taught that dreams were predetermined and that you were sort of a passive recipient of your dreams. No. Modern theory says that dreams are a participatory and responsive occurrence, event, phenomenon. And so then that takes you to number 3. Simple fact number 3 is dreams use symbolism. Symbolism is a language. It uses symbols together in context to convey deeper ideas. And that is symbolism. It is a language of using pictures. It's a lot like hieroglyphics. When you look at the hieroglyphics on the walls in, like, say, in Egypt, hieroglyphics aren't exclusive to Egypt, but when you look at the ones that are on the walls, you see all these symbols together, and you might see one that says, oh, this is the god Horus. We know that that's the name Horus. Well, that symbol itself has a lot of cultural connotations with it that Westerners or whoever that's seeing it thousands of years later would not get the same understanding from it that an Egyptian would who was there at the time. They understood much deeper connotations to it, but you put it together with the other hieroglyphs and it's hieroglyphic writing because they're conveying deeper ideas through pictures. A dream uses symbols together with other symbols and they put it together in context, and that is dream writing. That's the way that dreams communicate. So you start with those three simple facts, and anyone who's new to dream interpretation should know those three things. From there, you can branch off into my system, my process of dream interpretation that starts with those facts and then gives you steps that you can walk through. I would say the most important thing, you already know what your dreams mean. And there is a side of yourself behind your dreams, kind of like the wizard behind the curtain, that wants you to engage with it. Whether you're dreaming or you're asleep, it wants your attention. It wants your engagement. It wants to have a relationship with you. So if you can begin simply by journaling your dreams, if you're new to this, make this commitment to yourself. Wake up in the morning, think about just your dreams. Try to pull up as much as you can and get it down on paper. It helps you to have data over time to track your dreams. So a dream journal is wonderful in that way, but it's also telling that side of your mind, that intelligent awareness behind your dreams, behind the scenes, that you want to have a relationship with it. And then it will take that energy and feed it back to you in surprisingly wonderful ways. Keep a dream journal. And then go to dreams123.com and learn the simple facts and simple steps of dream interpretation.
What books would you recommend?
I have Rat Owl's Crash Course in Dream Interpretation. It's available at Amazon and other retailers. It's only 100 pages and it gets you started real fast. That was a great beginning place for you to learn the process of dream interpretation and then see it in action, to see it like spelled out for you. I have a book, The Dream Interpretation Dictionary, that kind of turns the formula of a dream dictionary on its head. Because when I was asked to write it, I said, I don't want to just write another dream dictionary. I want to start with what dream dictionaries do and use this to teach people about the process of personalizing their dream symbols. So you could look up a dream symbol like a dog or the color orange or a vampire, whatever it is that's been a symbol in your dream. And then I will tell you about the ways that it can be understood as a symbol, but also remind you that what it means personally to you is what's most important. And that I can't write a dream dictionary with every possibility for what it means, because I could go on pages and pages and pages about just one symbol. But I do that in my book about nightmares. Now, even if you're not into nightmares, if it's like something that's, you don't have a lot of nightmares or any nightmares. So it's maybe not a book that you would normally, it would be on your radar, but my book, Nightmares Interpreting Your Darkest Dreams, what I did was I took common symbols and themes from nightmares, and then I wrote in depth about them. So it's sort of like a dream dictionary, but it's more like an encyclopedia. And I teach the process of dream interpretation in the book itself. So it's sort of like the dream dictionary, but I was able to go into more depth and to really get into deeper teachings. So if you want to just restrict yourself to my book, then, I would start there. Otherwise, I would look up, if you're more therapeutic, I would look up Linda Schiller, Schiller. She has a book, PTS Dreams, and another one that's Modern Dream Work. And both of those books are wonderful. And Linda's a good friend and colleague of mine. So I kind of teach more of the layman's process of dream interpretation. And Linda teaches more of the therapeutic side of dream interpretation. And I think between the two of us, we cover a lot of territory.
It's been such an amazing conversation. How can listeners get in touch with you or learn more about you, your website address, and if you can repeat your podcast again, people can find you?
Sure. jmdebord.com. So Debord, jmdebord.com. My name's Jason, but JM was just, it was a little more gender neutral, and a lot of great authors like to use their initials. So for those reasons, I decided to choose JM as my pen name. That reaches out to all the different places. You can find my books, you can find my courses, you can find my podcast, The Dreams That Shape Us, with my co-host Steve Ernenwine, and they can find me that way. I've tried to set it up so that if you have a dream that you wake up from, and I've written about it, that you can find it simply by putting in the main symbol or theme from the dream And my name, J.M. Debord, or just D-E-B-O-R-D, or my nickname, Radowl, R-A-D-O-W-L. So if it's like you had a nightmare and you want to know more about nightmares, you could put in Radowl nightmares into a search and it will find what I have written about nightmares. Or you could put in J.M. Debord and recurring dreams, and it will find what I have published online about it. I have several websites, and I've been doing this for a long time where I've been putting content out there. Dreams123.net is a site that I've maintained for 10 years now. And I've put a lot of content there, a lot of information about dreams and specific themes and symbols, and then general information about the psychology behind dreams and, sort of the steps for understanding them and personalizing your dreams, understanding the content and doing something with it, like doing something actionable that is for your enrichment and benefit. So jmdebord.com, start there. And I'm all over the place. I've done a lot of media interviews, but I would really love for people to get into the podcast. If they like podcasts and if they're listening to your show, then they obviously are podcast listeners. They can get a lot of what I teach, but also what these other people are teaching. And it's not just my show anymore. It's my co-host, and it's also our guests who have a lot of great things and wisdom to share about dreams. So thank you for asking.
And the podcast is called Dreams That Shape Us?
Yes. Dreams That Shape Us. It's on all the major platforms.
Well, thank you, Jason, so much for being on the show. It's been such a great conversation, and I'm looking forward to listening to some of the episodes.
Well, thank you for having me on and showing the interest. You asked some great questions, and I really love it when people have done their homework. You obviously know about me and my work, and I appreciated your questions and helping me to reach your audience. So thank you for that, and I look forward to running across you again in the future.
Thanks again for joining us on this cosmic journey through the Age of Aquarius. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and learned something new about the world of dreams. Don't forget to hit that follow and like button so you never miss another episode. This is JC Nova. Until next time, stay curious, and thanks for listening.